The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast. Now available to hear on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Download the free app today. It's available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad. Listen anytime, anywhere. The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast. Now on Stitcher. The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast, is sponsored by Ella Dawn Designs. There's gotta be a better way to travel with your shoes. Now there is. The trademarked Ultimate Shoe Bag by Ella Dawn Designs. Travel your shoes easier, up to 8 pairs at a time with many styles to choose from. Go to elladondesigns.com to view the commercial and demo video. Use offer code ROMAN at checkout for a 10% discount. Hey, can we do the show now and stuff? Spreading the news like mayonnaise on toast. Gary, I have a mission for you.
Flex capacitor? Okay. But let me tell you about that time I drove a cab.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have you go ahead and...
Money that's something, chicks that read. I want my Mark TV.
First, you're not on TV. But I'm told it's like a radio program, this podcast. Now, that is some weird and wild stuff. Did you know that, Ed?
Yes!
Oh, well, I think we'll need to pray about that and ask your father.
Shut up, Marilyn!
Why is everybody shouting?
The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast. How come you're always such a fussy young man? Don't want no Cap'n Crunch, don't want no Raisin Bran. Well, don't you know that other kids are starving in Japan? So eat it. Just eat it. Get yourself an egg and beat it. Open your mouth and feed it. Just eat it. Just eat it. That was my Markioki of a song I haven't sung much before, in case you hadn't noticed, of Weird Al Yankovic's Just Eat It. A man who asked me to walk on his star, even spit or piss on it. Well, he asked all of us at the Hollywood Walk of Fame star reveal ceremony. Oh, hi there. I'm Mark Roman. Mark who? Mark Roman, like the Empire. More about Weird Al's star and why I was there later. We continue to record here at Jung Records, Jung, Jung Records, here in North Hollywood, carefully nestled in the wardrobe houses, car-crushing yards, and strip club next door district. Now, last week, Ollie Holiday was working the audio voodoo, mostly keeping to himself. Hey, he's British. He understands the proper social order and observing it. This week, from First Podcast and clearly a Vegas Lucky Charm, Major Wynn is back running sound. That's his real name. How's it going, Major?
Pretty good, guys. How you guys doing?
Can't complain. Can't complain.
Good to hear.
Now, we are gradually growing the podcast, kind of like your favorite organic, vegan, gluten-free zucchini. And as you may have heard at the top of the podcast, we're now on Stitcher. Groovy, huh? Hoping to be on other platforms soon, like Apple and Spotify. But remember, I'm just a working artist, okay? A lowly SAG-AFTRA busker. I have no assistants. I have no organization. It's just me. So much to do, like setting up the listener mail email. And sometimes I have to go be Hollywood Cap or Lieutenant Frank for the tourists and the tailgaters. I know it's an unpopular truth, but that's how I pay the bills, kids. My busking literally subsidizes this podcast. So before you think your job at the bank is more impressive, Just remember that Wells Fargo keeps getting caught stealing its customers' money. Yeah, when the bank robber is the bank. And let's not forget HSBC, okay? They were laundering drug cartel money. And never too soon to reflect on The Big Short. Jesus, look at me. Who do I think I am, Bill Burr? That's ridiculous. Look at my lush mane of hair. And still growing. I know you can only hear me now, my dear, sweet podcast listener, but you can see my hair and the rest of me on the Instagram, Vegas90210. So, I cried this morning. No, not from a bodily injury. I didn't stub my toe or bang my knee or fall off Runyon or nick myself, down there. Not even a flesh wound. No, my son is fine. Talked to him yesterday. He's back east, back at college in the honors dorm now. He seems happy. A lot of cool stuff playing out for him, but nothing unexpected. He's worked hard for it, certainly. No, I'm not in a relationship. Because if you're not crying, are you really in a relationship? But I'm not. Earlier today, back at my humble Hollywood domicile, in a building clearly a crime scene in a Raymond Chandler novel, a sporty, if musty, bachelor efficiency I share with another dude. Almost as if I was attending college with my eccentric filmmaker uncle. Namaste. In between last-minute prep stuff for the podcast, doing my breakfast dishes, listening to an episode of Mark Maron's What the Fuck podcast. Hey, how do you think I learned to podcast? So I'm listening to the episode with Sean Penn and Lynn Shelton. I'll put the link in the show notes. Mark reads listener mail from, I think it was Carolyn. And suddenly, I'm holding a soapy dish and crying. This listener writes Mark of the impact his podcast on her and her marriage to a U.S. Marine. And it moved me. Now, I'm no Mark Maron. First of all, like any self-respecting Mark, I spell my name with a K, okay? And I don't have a garage. I don't even have a cat. I've never performed at the Comedy Store. But right after The Big Short, when I let go of all the socially acceptable people telling me I should sell anything but me, I began to embrace my artist within. And part of my process, apparently, was listening to this new podcast at the time from that guy with that line in Almost Famous, the movie. That working comic who was on the Air America, the one that just went under. That guy with the clear anger issues and, well, as many difficulties with his dad as really everyone else in his life. Mark Maron. I listened to his What the Fuck podcast, WTF. Back when people didn't even know how to spell podcast. Before the iPhone. The days of Conestoga wagons, walking to school uphill in the snow both ways in sunny California, and flip phones. Back then, as he easily shared, Mark was in the middle of a full-blown midlife crisis. His podcast was all the mud he could muster to hurl against his cluttered garage wall. Now, back then, that's when his cat Boomer was around to ignore it. Nobody, especially Mark, ever thought he'd have someone like President Obama sit down in that same garage for an interview on his, well, it's like radio, but on the internet. Now, to me, Mark was like the older kid at school who acts like he's about to beat you up, and then when no one is looking says, "Kid, you look like the Amish, but less stylish. Look, I know a guy who can get you a pair of Levi's dirt cheap, but if you tell anyone we had this conversation, I'll fucking beat the shit out of you." We've yet to meet, Mark and I. That one time, he was about to take the stage at the Comedy Store after an introduction by Pauly Shore. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. That doesn't really count. Mark Maron has no idea, but he was a mentor to me, possibly a spirit animal. Back when his interviews would start with whatever apologies Mark knew were due, because apparently some people thought he might have kind of acted like an asshole. That one time. I've watched Mark build his WTF empire over the last decade. It inspired mine. Look, I have no idea what kind of success my podcast might have, and what does that even mean? I don't know whether anyone will listen, but some already have, and more do so each day. Look, I don't need fame or fortune. I just need to hear one person laugh from something I said each day, and maybe get a letter like Mark Maron got. That's worth it for me. Look, I'm just the son of Elmer Gantry's bitch. Like anyone who's honest, I've got more questions than answers. I'm just trying to get through that cliche, this thing we call life. My art, what I write, what I perform, that simply helps me do it. Hopefully, you get something out of it too. And now, book 'em, Dano. Oh. Shut up, Marilyn! And now, let us not pray. Instead, a reading from the Sacred Scrolls, son of Elmer Gantry's bitch. Also a poem by Mark Roman. Roman as in the Empire. The most holy reading of verses 4 and 5 with refrain. The student paper I wrote and published, why could I not let it go? That right-wing Ken doll pub crawl college boss sure hopes so. See, he had a lot of agape to give. If the smoking gun found son, understand they wouldn't. Especially his ladies' groom, his son. Everyone wonders why that abundant happy salesman not in my bones. Something completely different than dad's insurance, like mortgage loans? Harness my winning charms to sell whatever's not yet criminal in this port. Grab my fair share and do it before the next Great Depression or Big Short. See, scrolls, screens, and stages speak to me, indeed. So many died, some lived, that I might listen, watch, and read. But why did Mommy transmit that curious reading itch? Why me? Kimmy Schmidt, son of Elmer Gantry's bitch. So say we all. Now, for an autographed copy of the complete poem, Son of Elmer Gantry's Bitch, go to markromanempire.com and click merch. All right, the Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast, sponsored by Eladon Designs. They're our new sponsor. We're so happy to have them here. There's got to be a better way to travel with your shoes. Now there is. It's the trademarked Ultimate Shoe Bag by Eladon Designs. Hey, travel your shoes easier. Up to 8 pairs at a time. There's many styles to choose from. All you got to do is go to eladondesigns.com. There you can view the commercial and demo video. Hey, don't forget, use offer code ROMAN at checkout. That gives you a 10% discount. Now, the Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast, is also sponsored by Vegas 90210, the characters of. From that signature Lieutenant Frank in women's short shorts and rainbow tactical leg warmers, to Hollywood Cap, the Captain America of the Hollywood Avengers. Vegas 90210 characters deliver not only a fun photograph to show everyone back home, but also a live improv performance tailored to you. Can't wait to tell you guys about the gig I'm working tomorrow. Tune in next week. Book a Vegas 90210 character for your event today at vegas90210.com. The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast, is also sponsored by Mark Roman Empire merch. Mark's poem, Son of Elmer Gantry's Bitch, autographed. Lieutenant Frank's citations, which have been issued to folks like Joe Jonas and David Spade. And don't forget the Lieutenant Frank headshots, autographed. Tom Lennon loves his. More about that later. All groovy stuff that keeps this podcast rolling. Buy my poem, citation, or headshot today at MarkRomanEmpire.com. Click merch. Hey, guys, we're on Stitcher now. This is so awesome. I'm very excited. You can now hear the podcast on Stitcher. And Stitcher, if you might not know, is radio on demand. You can download the free app today. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favorite shows. Plus, you can discover from over 65,000 playlists. There's over 20,000 shows to discover. Don't forget, rate and review my show, The Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast, rated on Stitcher. You know, it's available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad. It's also in over 4 million car dashboards. On demand and on the go. Stream your favorite podcasts. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. Don't forget, rating or reviewing this podcast will affect my Stitcher list rank and discoverability. So help me out, guys. Rate and review. And thanks for supporting my podcast. This week, all right, we got a lot of Twitter posts. Not so many Instagram posts, but don't forget, on Twitter, I am at @TheMarkRoman. There's a cool post from Jessica Salons I reposted about the prison strikes. Check that out. By the way, all this stuff we're going to have listed in the show notes, so you can always go there. Lots of cool info if you got to dive a little deeper, and I hope you do. I like that about you. A lot of interesting Tom Lennon stuff this week on my Twitter. There's one that you want to check out. It's not the best one. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I like this quote. Booze is like chugging a glass full of ideas. That's actually from a video Tom did. Check that out on the show notes. A lot of cool Weird Al stuff and me. We'll discuss that a little bit later. I also have my prayer for Samuel J. Comroe. You might have just seen him on America's Got Talent. He's a comedian buddy of mine. A lot of interesting tweets here. There's also a 9-year-old who apparently, at the tender age of 9, found that they needed to commit suicide while living in Colorado, while gay, in 2018. Yeah. So, as someone who grew up, unfortunately, intimately aware with Focus on the Family and James Dobson, which, oh, wow, are located in Colorado, I felt compelled to tweet this. Will you accept responsibility at Dr. James Dobson, FT, at Focus Family, for creating the bullying and hate culture that caused this child's suicide? What would your Jesus do? Hashtag no hate, hashtag love, hashtag responsibility. You can always like that tweet if you want to. You don't have to. Louis C.K. I think Melinda Hill put it best. Louis C.K. is spearheading the hashtag MeTooSoon movement. There's also a cool thing from Paul F. Tompkins, and I think there's an article on the Hollywood Reporter that is worth reading in this current moment to bear in mind from the club owner where Louis C.K. performed. That's it on the Twitter, at @TheMarkRoman from this past week. Instagram's got a couple cool things. One thing that's really cool, check the show notes. My buddy, Elliot, who does Jules from Pulp Fiction, he looks just like Samuel L. Jackson. He actually did a gig at a wedding. These guys were a guy and a lady. Huge Pulp Fiction fans. Really cool video. Check it out. Links in the show notes. You know, we lost someone who I think a lot of people would acknowledge was an American hero. This person contributed to their country. He made a lot of people's lives better. I am, of course, talking about Neil Simon, the playwright. You might know him from The Odd Couple, which was first a Broadway play, and then it was a feature film with, as I recall, Jack Lemmon and the other guy. whose name is escaping right now because I'm old and apparently suffering from some type of mental defect right now, or possibly narcolepsy. I'm not sure. I'm not a medical doctor. Anyway, it also went on to TV, which had Jack Klugman as Oscar. Walter Matthau, there you go, was in the film. Jack Klugman played Oscar in the TV show. Tony Randall played Felix Unger. And to make this full circle, the most latest iteration, the remake of the TV show The Odd Couple, it starred Matt Perry as Oscar and none other than Tom Lennon. Yes, Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911. Tom Lennon as Felix Unger. So Neil Simon, he lived a long life. I think it was in his 90s. So it's certainly not tragic. But it's interesting that all the coverage that's going to a noted war hero who certainly did a lot of wonderful things. But let's be honest, he's a warrior. He went to kill people and did. And he was in a POW camp and he survived that. And he's done a lot of things recently to kind of help lead a certain party down a better path. Not sure how successful he was, but I kind of wish there was more Neil Simon tributes this past week than John McCain tributes. And I do say that with all due respect to John McCain and his family. But I don't know. I guess I'm the weird guy that prefers artists over people who kill people, even for, quote, good reasons. Even for, quote, your country. That's me. I'm that guy. Let's see here. Bobby Slayton. Love Bobby Slayton. He's a comic. He was also in the film The Rat Pack. He played Joey Bishop. And that film just celebrated its 20th anniversary. I'll have a link to a cool little tweet about that in the show notes. Or some kind of post. I really love Bobby Slayton, not just because he's if you've never seen him live, I don't know what rock you're hiding under. You need to. He is hilarious, full of energy, even at, I think he's like 97 years old or something. I don't know, possibly slightly older than Neil Simon, but he's fantastic. You got to see Bobby Slayton. And he's a guy with a heart. I remember a few years ago, when I was struggling even more as a working artist here in the Los Angeles, in the Hollywood. And I took advantage of a really cool thing that the Laugh Factory does on the holidays. They'll actually open their doors and offer a free meal and a free comedy show to whoever needs it. So it might be someone who's down on their luck, someone who's homeless, or like me, I actually was notified through SAG-AFTRA, my actors union, that that was available. And I took advantage of it with a buddy, and I remember sitting in line waiting to go into the Laugh Factory, and I watched Bobby Slayton walk in there, and then I saw him perform later. He's a good guy, mensch of a guy. You want to go see him live in your town. Look it up, check it out. Let's see. We got a lot of other stuff here that we could go into, but I think what I really want to talk to you about is what happened over the weekend. All right, so I go to the Sweet and Tender Hooligans concert. For those of you who don't know, Sweet and Tender Hooligans, they are this fantastic cover band for Morrissey and the Smiths. And I've seen them a few times in concert. When they play in LA, Tom Lennon will be their guitarist. And it used to be kind of an honorary thing. They wouldn't really bring it up all the time. Because he would only play the LA shows. But now they're officially listing him as a member of the band. And I usually always end up connecting with him either before or after the show. This time I actually brought because it was actually the lead singer Jose Madonna's birthday, or his quinceañera, as Lieutenant Frank might say. And so I brought autographed copies of my Lieutenant Frank headshots, one for Jose Madonna and the band, and also one for Tom Lennon. And after the concert, which had much bigger numbers than last year, the popularity is definitely increasing, but it's always a full show. So I didn't get to see Tom before the show. After the show, ton of security around with the venue. I'm thinking, maybe Tom and I are not going to connect this time, which is fine. But the band manager sees me, and she comes up to me and talks to me, and then she goes back and she brings Tom out. And so we get a photo together. It was awesome. And there's a photo which I'm hoping to get a copy of, but there's a photo of Tom holding his autographed Lieutenant Frank headshot. So that was really cool. And then as Tom is hugging me, we're getting the photo, the band manager's taking a photo of us. He says, hey, Weird Al Yankovic, he's getting a star in Hollywood on Monday. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like right in my neighborhood. He's like, I know. He says, I got to give a speech and I don't know what I'm going to say. And can you come? And yeah, I can come. Absolutely. I mean, I'd be coming as Lieutenant Frank and I'd probably be off to the side because, hey, this is Weird Al's day. So, I got a costume and everything. I got to kind of like downplay it. And Tom's like, yeah, no, please come. So I did. And it was crazy. Now, you got to understand, I live in Hollywood. There's stuff going on all the time. At a certain point, you get acclimated to it. There's always a new star being unveiled on Hollywood Boulevard. I will just randomly walk through them or by them as I'm out and about doing errands or what have you, going from point A to point B. It's the town. It's Hollywood. Normally, you have an acceptable group of people for most star unveilings. You can notice something's going on. There's a little bit of security. They got part of the road kind of roped off. There's, the little barriers that you pour the water in, all that kind of stuff. But, usually it's something you can fairly easily navigate. Not Weird Al Yankovic's. I got there half an hour early. And the street, it was literally right on the main drag of Hollywood Boulevard, just a few steps down from Hooters, right across the street from the Hard Rock Cafe, a few paces down from the Jimmy Kimmel Live theater. The entire block was filled with people. There was a line of people that literally went around the block, down Orange, out to the back near Hollywood High School, and the back part of Jimmy Kimmel Live where they do the live outdoor concerts. I don't know what those people in line thought they were going to be able to see once they finally got to the front of the line, because by then, this thing would be over. Nevertheless, these diehard fans were happy to wait because it's their Weird Al and he's finally getting a star.
Thanks to them.
That's right. Thanks to them. We got Ross here, by the way, a.k.a. Logan. We'll be interviewing him in a minute. That's right, the Hollywood Wolverine, Ross Johnson. We'll be talking to Ross here in just a minute. I have to go on the other side of the street because now there's more crowd gathering. So they're gathering on both sides of the street. And I actually have to get a spot so I'm even visible. All I'm trying to do is just hang there. I just want Tom to see me for a brief nanosecond so he knows that I showed up per his request, but I'm certainly not going to do anything. It's a little difficult when you're a character in women's short shorts and rainbow tactical leg warmers. You kind of stick out. So when your goal is to just simply show up and show solidarity and not in any way be part of the thing, the attraction, it's tough. So I'm trying to thread that needle, okay? So I find my spot. I'm like positioned right in front of the Randy's Donuts Anticipation Experience, right near the Hard Rock Cafe. And just like 2 minutes before the actual unveiling ceremony is to begin, I look behind me and it's just packed. There's people everywhere. I've never seen this before. This is like the most people have ever showed up in a while for a star unveiling, short of maybe, I think Luke Skywalker. I think his was bigger. That's the last one I can remember. Mark Hamill. Yeah, that's probably it. So it was huge. So Dr. Demento was the first guy to speak after the usual Hollywood Chamber guy. And then they brought Tom on. And Tom got up. I could tell he seemed to be a little nervous, but, he looked great in his suit. He's ready to go. I thought he gave a great speech. Second he got up there, he looked over my way, saw me, raised his hand. And I'm like, mission accomplished. And I'm just chilling. And it was amazing. There's some great video. We'll put a link in the show notes. I believe it was Variety who did it, of the whole ceremony. It was hilarious. It was awesome. And as Ross mentioned here, Logan, it was all the fans. Normally these things are financed by studios or managers or representation. This all happened because of a group of very diehard, persistent fans, literally over years, even decades, trying to make this happen. So it was a very heartfelt, poignant ceremony. You could definitely feel it. And I was just like really happy to be a really tiny, itty bitty, small part of that as Lieutenant Frank. And then afterwards, someone was trying to get a photo with both me and Tom. So they did. And then other people were getting photos with Tom. And I don't know, it was just a crazy weekend, a lot of fun. I'll tell you guys more about experiences I've had with Tom Lennon in future episodes. He's a really great guy. And I'm just grateful to have a very unique relationship with him. So where to see me next, guys? Well, Lieutenant Frank will possibly do some cameos on Hollywood Boulevard. Lieutenant Frank will be at upcoming football tailgates, both college and NFL. I think we're done with preseason. Interesting stuff last week. Didn't have a chance to talk about, but we'll get into more about the tailgates in future episodes. Also, there's Hollywood Cap on Hollywood Boulevard with the Hollywood Avengers, including Hollywood Iron Man and Hollywood Wolverine, who is our guest today. More about that in a minute. Now, don't forget, we're on Stitcher now. So Stitcher, YouTube, there you can find me as Mark Roman Empire. On SoundCloud, it's Mark Roman Podcast. And of course, I'm on Twitter, The Mark Roman. On Instagram, Vegas90210. On Facebook, it's now Mark Roman Empire. It was formerly Mark Roman Creative. Subscribe, follow, view, like, share, retweet. You know what to do. And of course, the website, MarkRomanEmpire.com. That's where you go to get the latest info on the podcast, where to hear it, the newest platforms you can listen to it on, the merch that keeps this show going, as well as the vital show notes for all those references along this primrose path. And I know today there was a lot of them. My guest today is Ross Johnson. He's not only a colleague, he's a good friend of mine. He's a fellow busker. He's a fellow SAG-AFTRA actor. He's also an entrepreneur and an inventor. So we'll be talking to him a little bit about that and a bunch of other stuff, as well as some local Hollywood stuff. So I'm really looking forward to interviewing my next guest, Ross Johnson, or as his friends like to call him, and I'm one of his friends, Logan. Logan.
That's what some people call me.
That's right. I know, but Ross Johnson. Can you even remember one time I've called you Ross?
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Because you're Logan. I think it's especially due to the fact that when I started doing Captain America, it was about a year ago, doing the Hollywood Avengers. They were working together as buskers, so.
Yeah. Good times. First, I just wanted to congratulate you on getting your podcast going here.
Well, thank you. I have no idea what I'm doing, as you witnessed sitting here like a trooper through my monologue. Thanks for getting here early.
Sounded good from here, pal. Sounded good from here.
Too kind. Yeah, we're buddies. We're also neighbors.
It's true. Just behind, Hollywood Boulevard there, not too far.
Right. So we deal with a lot of Hollywood unique and specific issues. Looking forward to talk about that a little later here. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the cosplaying for a second. Because you're not just a cosplayer, but you literally, I'm looking at you, and you look just like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. It's crazy. What's it like when you first recognize that and then to deal with that in everyday life?
It's interesting. It's definitely a positive thing.
Yeah.
Get a lot of positive feedback from people from it. So, when I take pictures on the boulevard, I hear quite often that people tell me I've made their day. And it's a great thing to hear. So going to keep doing what I'm doing for a while. Yeah, the tourists are liking it, and it's good fun. So
it's wild because I'll be standing there right next to you, and people come up and they just they do a double, triple, quadruple take, and oh my God, you look exactly like.
Yeah, it's close. I'm close. I wouldn't say identical twin, but when people have
The
seen
hair helps, the facial hair,
yeah, it's the illusion. And,
the hair on the top.
When you talk like him a little bit and you put your voice into it,
Right.
you call him Bub. And they want to be called Bub because they've seen the movie and they like it.
It's a Bubbathon, right? Yeah, it's funny because people from Australia, I'll notice, and this happens not just once, it's like a recurring thing. And I don't know if it bugs you, but I notice it a lot working with you. People from Australia come up to you, not as if you're Wolverine, this character in a movie, but they'll come up to you as if you're actually Hugh Jackman. And so they'll start relating to you as if you were a fellow Australian. And how do you respond?
Yeah, always asking me, so how's your Aussie accent? How's your Aussie accent, mate? And I'm standing there dressed as Wolverine, so I want to stay in character. So,
like rule one, you know?
Yeah, if you're dressed like someone, you speak like them, you know? Especially if you're impersonating somebody. So I always stay in character, and
yeah, you do.
It's kind of like a backhanded compliment, I guess, because they obviously think I look like Hugh.
Sure.
But they want me to sound like him, and I'm not going to do that because then I'm breaking character. So.
Oh, why don't you be here for us? Be here for us.
So.
And the funny thing is that the character Wolverine is actually Canadian.
Yes, from Canada. So basically sounds an American accent.
Now, are you Canadian?
No, I was born in England originally. We immigrated here when I was 5. My dad was an engineer, and America was booming back then. And they came over to, whoever was looking for people came to England and a few other countries over there and asked whoever wanted to come over, whoever had these trade skills, you know, which my dad did. They said that bring your wife, bring your kids, and you guys all get green cards and immigrate on in. So we did.
That's so cool. So you're an immigrant.
Yeah, yeah.
Which to me, I don't even think of that. But technically, that's.
I did have an English accent when I was 5 years old when I moved here when I was 5 until I was about 7 or 8. But hanging out with kids in the school, you obviously just end up talking like them, and before you know it,
right,
you're speaking like them. Yeah, so it wears off pretty quickly, depending on how old you are when you move. I think it's a puberty thing. If you're before or after when you move, you either keep your dialect or you don't. Your accent.
Oh, really?
More or less. This seems to be what it is, yeah.
Interesting.
Unless you've forced it out like Mel Gibson did. You know, he now speaks like an American all the time.
Right.
When most Australian actors only put it on for the movies.
Right.
A lot of English actors. Like the last 2 Spider-Men being from England, you know, a lot of people don't even realize that. Superman's from England.
Right, right.
You know, there's a lot of these characters that people just don't realize.
Well, that's something I've noticed, you know, working as an actor. It seems ever since I came here, what was it, 8 years ago or so, or however long it's been, directors in Hollywood love British actors. I don't know if it's because, you know, typically they come, you know, they have a pedigree of the Royal Shakespeare Company, or just, you know, they're so well technically trained.
I think that's what it
artists.
is. They're trained a little bit differently, and I think it might be a bit more sternly or something. They just, I can't really put my finger on it because I haven't been trained in England, but I just have a feeling they're a bit more focused, somewhat, in a different way, somehow.
Well, it's a way that it seems Hollywood directors really enjoy, and that translates to productions that we as viewers love.
It's clearly working for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, and you are also a SAG-AFTRA actor, as am I, but Ross Johnson's not your SAG-AFTRA name.
No, there was somebody who was already using that name, so I have to go with my middle name as well, Ross Michael Johnson.
Ross Michael Johnson, okay.
Found on IMDb and its website, rossmichaeljohnson.com.
It's a pretty exotic name, Ross Michael Johnson.
Yep, English and Irish.
Right?
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Maybe Scottish. I believe Ross was a Scottish last name.
Was it?
Millennia ago, once upon a time. Still is in some places, but not so much over here now, more or less.
I share a similar situation in having a SAG-AFTRA name that's different from, my legal or common name. But that was a choice simply because, my dad thought being a Jackson was so awful right after World War II that he thought the best alternative was to take his name from a guy named Adolf Nels. So that's why I'm a Nels. And that's why, after a lifetime growing up with the Dick and Marilyn show, the first time I stepped up to a mic on a comedy stage, did any kind of entertaining, I said, my name is Mark Roman. Roman like the Empire. And so when I got my SAG card, it's like, yeah, my SAG name is going to be Mark Roman. So.
Yeah, it's good. A lot of actors change their names, don't they? Stage names. That's cool.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever works. Now, tell us a little bit about, I actually watched, and I saw this before, but I want to see it again. I didn't have a chance to see some of the other productions, but I did rewatch a film that you're in. And I believe you also wrote and produced, if I'm not incorrect, Anger Anonymous.
Yes, it's a few years back now. A couple years, about 3 years ago or so. Yeah, when starting on the Boulevard as a character, you start to befriend other good characters. Just out of respect, you get talking to each other. And I started to notice that there was other actors out there, and there's, like Batman was a writer. Iron Man was a...
Which Batman? There's more than one.
Yeah, he's not out there anymore, but at the time, Batman was a writer. Iron Man was an actor. Marilyn Monroe, she was an actress. Jules, an actor. And I just thought, all these great characters, it would be great to put a short together with them. Someone needs to write something for these guys.
Right.
So I ended up meeting someone who said they were a writer and said they could produce something, and they just kept lagging. They never got through, never got finished with it. And it just,
right.
My original plan was to do like a poker game where everyone's sitting around all these different characters and they're playing a card game. And then
why didn't you do that?
Shenanigans happen.
That would have been cool.
Well, then I got the idea to, the show with Charlie Sheen, Anger Anonymous? No, Anger Management.
Anger Management.
Yeah, where he is kind of like not the teacher, but the guy at the meeting who's trying to...
Like a facilitator?
Yeah, like he heads the meeting at his house.
Wasn't that based on a movie with Jack Nicholson and...
I don't know, but...
Adam Sandler, I want to say?
Maybe.
Okay.
Probably not. But anyway, I wanted to... so I thought, wouldn't it be funny? Because a lot of these characters, like the Joker and Jules from Pulp Fiction and the Incredible Hulk, they all have anger issues.
Right.
Wolverine. So I thought, wouldn't it be funny if...
You don't have anger issues. Your character. I'm talking to your character. For all you Australian listeners out there, I'm talking to Wolverine, not Hugh Jackman here.
So I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we were all sitting around and there's like an Anger Anonymous class where we've been sanctioned by the
meeting,
courts.
a group meeting.
Yeah. Like anger management class.
Okay.
So I know all these characters from the movies, Jules, everyone knows Jules from Pulp Fiction and
right.
the Joker. So you've already got an idea of their personality. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try to use lines from their movies, tie it into the scenario somehow.
Right.
But also come up with something that would sound like they would say it. And we did. We got Elvis in there. Michael Jackson shows up. There's a couple other surprise guests I'm not going to tell you about if you'd like to go check it out on YouTube. Anger Anonymous.
Can we say who the facilitator is?
Yeah, I'll give that away.
Okay.
It's Alan from The Hangover.
Is our buddy Tim, who looks exactly...
Yeah, he's amazing, this guy.
Yeah.
So I had to get him in there.
Yeah, he's really cool, mate.
He's a very funny guy, Tim is.
I've spent a lot of time busking as Lieutenant Frank, working next to him. So I've gotten to know him. Well, he's a really, really good guy. But it's wild how... he's like you. It's just, it's uncanny. And it's fun to just watch people, or with Elliot, who does Jules from Pulp Fiction, just to see people.
Yeah, it's
or
great.
like our buddy Arez, who does Hollywood Johnny Depp. Just all these different characters that are these insane lookalikes. The way people react.
Yeah. The reactions are great.
Priceless.
Golden, especially the kids.
Right.
When they really think you are him. And
right. Well, I've been amazed. It's kind of surprised me. And you had a hand in this too, for me becoming Hollywood Cap. Because I never for one second thought I even remotely looked like Chris Evans, who's the current incarnation of Captain America. But you want to tell a story of how I became, because you were heavily involved. I'm at your place swimming because we're in the neighborhood. My place doesn't have a pool. My place doesn't even have a parking lot. So I'll go over to your place once in a while. What happened?
well, I guess we're hanging out, and my old roommate now, he was moving out at the time, and he had a jacket. He was Captain America a little bit on the boulevard, and he had a jacket and shield for sale. And I was thinking, well, winter's coming up.
And why would this is we're talking about Henry Hodge here, the international playboy and cinematographer who's now he's in Prague now, isn't he?
He's in Prague filming stuff, yeah.
Well, he took there's some of the basic photos for Lieutenant Frank of Vegas 90210, where he's like right in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. Those were taken by Henry Hodge. And actually this photo right here, the headshot where Lieutenant Frank's got his foot on that fire hydrant right in front of the Hard Rock, that was taken by Henry Hodge. So, small world. Anyway, so Henry Hodge is going off to Prague to be international playboy cinematographer, and so he doesn't need his Captain America suit anymore.
Yeah, so he's looking to sell it, and I think, well, winter's coming up, and I know these ladies' short shorts aren't keeping you and your friends too warm in the winter there.
Well, Lieutenant Frank does wear a jacket in the winter, but yeah, it gets a little chilly, even in Hollywood.
Yeah, so I figured, why not? You could pull it off if you put the effort into the character, and you did, and you pulled it off.
But how did I react initially when you suggested that by the pool?
No
or
way.
Drinking.
Yeah, no way I could be Cap. But the people, if you sell the idea of Captain America, that's the main important thing. You're selling the idea. So when people see you, you're saluting them. You're standing up straight like a soldier does, and you got the shield out there for them.
All my years as a Boy Scout, it helped with that.
Right. So it gives.
It's instinctive because that's what a Steve Rogers would do. I am Steve Rogers.
Yeah, and you're a good height to play him. You're not some Middle Eastern guy trying to pull it off who's 5'2" or something.
I'm not as tall as Al Pacino,
which happens out there, and you're just like, what is this guy doing?
Right.
In some bubble puffy costume from the Halloween store. It's just pathetic. So you wearing the proper leather jacket, it shows respect to the character, and
which I have now, but I started out with something that was more pleathery.
Still, the pleather jacket was even better than what some of these guys wear. I mean, these puffy costume suits are a joke. Good for a Halloween gag, but not to seriously portray a character that you're asking for tips to take photos with people. You want to look your best.
And not look like you found something that was left in an abandoned Halloween store.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is that, to me, is that what's going on in my head when I'm Lieutenant Frank, it's a very similar motivation to when I'm Cap. I think I'm a hero. I think I'm this guy that's going to save the day. I literally will listen to hero soundtracks from, different movies. It's just the costume's different and the backstory is different. The name is different. Who you are is different. But the ethos of each character, for me, is almost identical between Lieutenant Frank and Captain America. The difference is just how people react to it, and that just amazes me. How do you find, what's it like, the reactions you get? Beyond, of course, the obvious, wow, you look exactly like Hugh Jackman doing Wolverine. What?
Yeah, the triple takes are the funniest. Not just a double take, but a triple take when they're walking by.
Like they almost drop something, like they just completely stop, someone runs into them, or they lose their party. Or
and obviously the kids that come running up Wolverine, I saw you in that last movie. How come you're killing all those guys?
Yeah, right. Because to them, you really are Wolverine.
Yeah.
And they're going to be at Show and Tell next week, and they'd be like, I met Wolverine. I went to Hollywood, and I got to meet Wolverine. He's awesome. You know, he gave me his extra, because you have extra claws that you'll give people, right?
Yeah, I carry a spare set of claws in my jacket pocket that they don't see that I have. So as they'll ask for a photo, and I tell them, of course, Bub, you know, we just do this for tips, if that's all right with you. And they'll agree. And
This is what the good characters do.
yeah, the legit characters will tell you that we take photos for tips.
Before the photo's taken.
Yeah. And so we'll do that. And I'll take a few photos with them, and then when they don't suspect it, I'll pull the extra claws out.
Right.
And then they're like, what? I get claws too? And they're all surprised. And I put the claws on them, and I pose them up, and we take a few more photos. And
So now they're mini Wolverine with you.
it's so you've got to think, like, these people have been watching these movies for years. They obviously love this character.
Probably
And
seen him
now-
many times.
And now, in a
over.
way, they kind of get to become him for a second with
Right.
the claws. And you wouldn't believe the expressions I've seen on some people's faces, from 3-year-old children to 90-year-old Asian women and Asian men. You give them a chance to let loose for a second, and then
Right.
they'll just they just go into it, and they start jumping around, and I tell them,
Right.
hey, no killing, don't start killing anybody now. You know, leave that up to me. And it's always positive. It's great energy out there.
And people can go to these big, huge corporate theme parks, whether it be like a Disneyland or Universal Studios or what have you, and they have, hired employees that will be wearing, these very specific costumes. But it's a different experience from what. So I don't think there's a place you can go and actually wear Wolverine's claws next to someone who actually looks exactly like Wolverine.
Only place on earth, Hollywood.
Got to come find Hollywood Wolverine. Well, that's
And I keep now I've started keeping an extra pair of X-23 claws. And for those of you who don't know who X-23
Laura.
is, she is Laura Kinney, who was a clone. In the movie, they say daughter, but in the comic books, she's a clone of Wolverine. And she has 2 claws coming out of her wrists and 1 coming out of each foot. I don't carry the foot claws, but I carry extra claws.
There's foot claws?
For the women. For
I don't
Laura,
remember that,
she
really?
has one
She
in
had
each
them?
foot. When she jumps up
Oh,
and she's
that's
swinging her
awesome.
feet around, she chops heads off with her feet.
I'm going to have to see it again. I
Slices
forgot
necks.
that part. Okay.
Yeah. So, it's great to be able to make people happy, because there's not really much going on in Hollywood. There's stars on the ground. There's the Chinese theater. There's El Capitan and the Hollywood sign you can see from a distance. But other than that, there's a wax museum, but there's not really many things to do.
They're interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And make you
going-
feel like you're actually a part of Hollywood as opposed to just
Hollywood
being
Boulevard,
at a museum.
Hollywood Boulevard is the 3rd most visited tourist destination behind in Southern California, behind Griffith Observatory and Disneyland.
Wow.
And back to Disneyland, I was just there for the
Oh, you
the
were,
chalk
weren't you?
walk,
Yeah,
the-
you and your sister.
the Children's Hospital of Orange County charity walk that we do every year there.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's kind of creepy in a way that the characters don't talk. You see Mickey and you're like, hi, Mickey. Like my sister, she's
That's right.
really into the characters.
But that's the job.
My younger
They're
sister,
instructed
yeah.
not to, right?
Yes, but you would think it would be part of the job to just,
Right?
be trained to do a Mickey voice and, hi, kids, how's it going?
But they don't do that.
They don't talk whatsoever.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe because they want to keep it even. They don't have, but like I said, it should be part of the
Yeah, it's
training.
a corporate thing to be consistent and
it's
predictable.
completely consistent.
Because they got
And then-
they got a brand that they want to protect, and,
And then
it's their
I guess
brand.
you don't get Mickey spouting off some crazy sentence that he shouldn't have said or something if he gets
Right.
frustrated or hot one time out there. But I still think it's weird. Like, you go meet Mickey in his house and it's all quiet in there, and they close the door behind you, and it's just Mickey and one of his handlers. And me and my sister in there were like, hi, Mickey. And he's just bouncing back and forth. His head's wobbling, and she's like talking to him, and he's not answering back, and he's just doing these,
He's a mime.
he's just miming, totally miming.
Yeah,
and
he's
it's all right, but I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it would be much better experience if they could talk a little bit, at least a few words,
So the difference is people will pay a lot of money to go to Disneyland.
$117 a ticket right now, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Or, and they get a character that doesn't talk. Or they can come to Hollywood Boulevard, where you don't have, there's no cost of admission. It's public. You got to pay for parking, but you paid for parking at Disneyland too, probably even more. You got to pay for parking almost anywhere. And then maybe you can talk a little bit about this. So how does it work? Because we mentioned earlier, there's like the good characters, and that suggests, well, maybe there's bad characters. Like how does the whole tipping thing work with buskers or street performers? And what's the right way to do it? What's the legal way? How does that all work for people who don't know?
Well, yeah, busking is probably the second oldest profession next to prostitution.
Right.
So it goes back quite a while. I mean, it goes way back to when people used to juggle on the street for entertainment, to entertain people, and people would tip them, or they'd tell jokes and make people laugh.
Or do magic or sing or play.
And then fast forward all the way up to writing freedom of speech, and that becomes part of the...
It was Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers.
Yeah.
He was a busker.
Yeah, so exactly. So he writes into law that, freedom of speech, you can say what you want on the boulevard or anywhere in public, and if people want to, you can dress how you like too.
So you're saying the First Amendment was inspired by busking, in part?
In part, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I never really thought of it that way, but that's...
It's
true.
So there's not many places in the world where you can... Busking does take place in Barcelona, in Madrid, in London, in Amsterdam, main cities, New York.
All places I've never been, would love to go, except for New York. I've been to New York.
And there's other places too, but it's usually a little bit different in other countries. In Barcelona, for example, it's either people are doing characters, not like characters like we do in Hollywood. In Hollywood, it's more like movie stars. People are impersonating someone who looks like they just walked off a set.
Right.
And that works so well because people come to Hollywood, all the tourists, looking to meet a famous person.
Right.
Always in the back of their mind, they're like, maybe I'll see a famous person.
It's a celebrity culture. It's why TMZ has done so well.
That's why they're here. So the next best thing is to be walking down the street, and all of a sudden, whoa, there's Samuel L. Jackson. There's Jules from Pulp Fiction.
Right.
You're like, whoa, that's Captain Jack.
Right.
He looks just like Johnny Depp. That's amazing. And then you're like, wait, there's a fat Spider-Man. What's up with that? And then
and he just grabbed a kid. What's up with that?
Yeah, and then you walk around, and whoa, it's Wolverine. He looks like he just walked off set too.
Right.
And
it's a crazy circus-like potpourri.
There's a mixture of legit impersonators and people that take...
Because it's public.
Their craft seriously.
Anybody can show up, and everybody does.
Yeah, and then you get other people that are just trying to take advantage of the system and use a cheap suit they found to extort people for money. Strong-arm robbery.
How does that work for people
that
maybe
happens
haven't unfortunately experienced that? What does that typically look like?
Well,
like I come up to you and I'm like,
well, you can see it on the street. People, if you're walking around with your camera and some character tries to force himself into your picture, and then they grab the camera and they start taking photos, and you're kind of into it. So you just go along with it. They've got your kid's attention or whatever. And then afterwards they'll try to demand $20. And it happens. And then it's strong-arm robbery, and they'll surround you, and then before you know it, you've got 3 or 4 characters coming down on you and your kids trying to get money from you.
So the bad characters, they'll basically solicit you. They'll come up. You may or may not have wanted to get a photo with them, but they approach you and they're like, hey, let's get a photo. And then they demand money after the photo. And then they'll work in groups where there's one person, all of a sudden a bunch of other people, without any discussion of it, suddenly show up, are in the photo. So you think you're getting a photo with one person, suddenly there's 4 people, and then they're all demanding a specific number as a tip from each person. Is that
Yeah, and it could be upwards of $20, $30, sometimes more.
Whereas the good characters, how do they behave?
Majority of the time, you'll see the good characters don't really roam around or walk around too much, with the exception of a few like Michael
They don't need to
Jackson.
because people come to you.
Yeah, like you said,
Little kids are excited, like Wolverine, you know?
Yeah, there's an exception of characters that will roam around. Michael Jackson, for example, because he likes to moonwalk around a lot. And
My Lieutenant Frank
gets around.
would do that too.
yeah, so there is exception to that, but majority of characters will stand in one spot.
Right.
And they wait for tourists to approach them. They might engage with them a little bit as they walk by.
Sure.
But then it's ultimately up to the tourists whether they want the picture, and they decide to come up to the busker and ask for a picture. And then you will
So
say,
you don't have to solicit. People are just like, holy crap, this dude looks exactly like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I want to get a photo with that guy.
Sometimes you get people, and
So it's the quality of your act or your look or your costume that stands, it sells itself, so to speak.
and sometimes people may not know what you're doing out there. They may think you're hired from the Chinese theater.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, a lot of people think you're hired help or you're
So-
promoting something.
So sometimes, you will mention, I just take photos for tips if you'd like to join me. And a lot of people will. And then you take a few photos and then you let them tip you after. And they can give you whatever they want.
And what if they just give you like $1 or something? What do you do?
That's fine. You take it and you say thank you and have a nice day.
Because legally, what is the law? I mean, we're not lawyers.
Well,
Although we might play one on TV, and we're certainly open to it.
you're having like an agreement with somebody. It's like a verbal agreement. They ask you for a photo. You're giving them something. They want something from you.
Right.
So for you to be able to offer this to them consecutively over and over and over again every day to people, you have to get compensated or else you can't be out there. So asking for a tip is fine. It has to be done.
Sure. And legally, as I understand it, because we are artists or performing artists under the First Amendment, we have a right to, and this has actually been backed up by various courts all the way up to the Supreme Court. We'll put it in the show notes. It's overdue. There's a great read on Wikipedia for buskers or street performers. If you look under the case history, and every single time there's ever been a conflict between a busker and a local government, the court always come down on the side of the busker. And the consistent legal points are you have a right under the First Amendment to perform in public. And you have a right to do so with the expectation that someone would tip you some kind of gratuity, and you have a right to ask for that gratuity. The difference is the second you name a number, is what I understand. Again, I'm not an attorney, but from what I understand, the second you basically, list a price or quote charge, you say, hey, I want $5 or I want $20 or I want $100 or whatever. I want 50 cents. Doesn't matter the amount. The minute you name a number, you're now naming a price, and that kind of flags the local authorities because they go, oh, wow, you're charging a price. Okay, so you're no longer an artist performing free speech. You're now a merchant charging a price. Where's your business license? So as artists, we don't have to have a business license because it's not under the legal terms of busking, even though, you might operate as a business. It's not viewed in the eyes of the law as far as being able to perform in the public as a business. It's viewed as art, free expression, as long as you don't say a number.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Yeah, me too. We have like a code out there, all the good buskers, and we all just tell everyone the same. We all just take photos for tips. Is that cool with you?
Right.
If they say no, I don't have any tips, but can I really have a photo? I love your character. I love what you do. There's respect there. And a lot of the times we will give free photos. When people just walk up and shove a camera in your face and expect free photos, it's a little different. They're not treating you with respect. They're treating you more like a statue.
Right.
So you don't have to give them free photos if you don't want.
Because, again, we have free agency as characters. We're not obligated to, I mean, you can take whatever video and photos you want out in public that you're able to get, but you can't,
force someone to pose for you.
Exactly.
With you, yeah.
Compel someone. So it's a very interesting, because I started doing this, 5 years ago, Lieutenant Frank, and it's just been very interesting to see the human behavior, how people behave and their expectations. And because, you'll come across some people that, you have wonderful experiences with because they really love the character that you're portraying. You basically are performing the live theater, and they really, it's an experience for them, like going to a Disneyland. And they really, it's something they'll talk about, for years afterwards. I'll be like, yeah, I was in Hollywood with Wolverine. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's made it onto a lot of people's Facebook profile pictures.
Yeah,
with
you've got
Seen that.
Instagram's
It's
pretty
quite cool.
impressive. You've got, about 13,000 followers. Just printed this up this morning. Your latest thing, and you get tagged a lot.
Hollywood Wolverine. Yeah,
Hollywood Wolverine on the
purpose,
Instagram.
I tell the tourists to take photos with me. I actually have it labeled on my back.
Oh, that's right. You have hashtag Hollywood Wolverine on the back of your Wolverine jacket.
Obviously, that's not in the movies, but I don't show my shoulders for the pictures.
Right.
The reason I have that is to show people afterwards, to self-promote, and to get them to basically send their pictures back to me, because then I can post it and share it with everybody. And I've had thousands of people do that, which is great, because I don't get to see the pictures that they take.
Right.
They disappear, and you always wish you could see those.
Sure.
And there's a lot that I don't get to see that I wish I did, but a lot of them make it back, and it's great.
It's interesting too, because there's a conversation about copyright, trademarks, ownership of intellectual property, and that sort of thing. Large companies like Disney are very aggressive in legally enforcing their rights and making sure there's extensions of those types of laws. But the cosplay phenomenon has really grown and become very popular over the last few decades. And I don't know, just it strikes me as very, very interesting when you have a company that's taking old nursery rhymes that were not written by any Disney employee. In fact, they were written long before Walt Disney was even an idea or born. And they're creating this content based on old stories they didn't write. It's a little interesting for them to get a little too protective about their, quote, intellectual property. Because from where I stand, you're wearing a costume, you happen to look a certain way. You can't choose how you look. You can manage your hair a little bit. You can choose a costume to wear. But it's the live performance that you deliver. And that's a legitimate, art and work. And it's something that's worthy of compensation. So it's interesting to me that I have heard some people complain about costume characters as if somehow Disney and Universal and these huge companies are somehow suffering because someone who typically is not making an enormous income, and even if they were making, let's say for argument's sake, $200,000 a year, compare that with the revenues of a Disney on one day. Like how much revenue came in just in ticket sales the day you went to Disneyland? Just the tickets, not all the merch they sold, not all that stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of
real how much they're making. Kind
of interesting, and I know I think this is important stuff to discuss because I've noticed.
I heard a story about Disney recently where a nursery school. So these kids are like, 1-2 years old. A nursery school in their communal room had painted up a whole slew of Disney characters up on the wall. And they'd done this in 2 of their nursery homes. And Disney somehow heard about it and came in and basically made them paint the walls white. They said, get rid of the Disney characters. You don't have our permission. Which I think is absolutely stupid because you're brainwashing these kids to like Disney from when they're a baby.
Right, exactly.
They're looking up at these walls and going, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Donald, and it's every day in their faces for years.
Right.
And they're gonna want to go to Disneyland now and be hooked for life.
Right.
So why it's in their best interest to do that. But then I hear that Universal Studios heard that Disney did that and called up the nursery schools and said, you can use our characters free of charge. So now they've got Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones all up in their nursery schools. So these kids are going to grow up liking those more.
And this is not to pick on Disney. It's just like a lot of large companies.
I mean, I love Disney.
They're profit-driven. They want to protect their assets. They hire really expensive attorneys to aggressively and doggedly police all of that. But at a certain point, it's kind of like, really, guys? It's like the music industry. The model's gone from making money off the music to making money off the merch, which for Disney, the same thing. They don't make their money off of, off the movie tickets. They make their money off of,
Oh, yeah. The Avengers know all about that, like Marvel.
Yeah.
The amount of...
The Avengers sleeping bag, the Captain America lunchbox, the Iron Man.
The toys alone, like, $25, $30 a toy that costs a couple pennies to make.
Huge. So yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting for us too.
I just hope one day that like China doesn't buy Disney, because I could see that happen, like the biggest trillions of dollar deal ever, and then they just own everything.
It's certainly in the realm of possibility.
But it's getting there. It's going to be like Disney versus everyone else.
Right.
They're like the Coca-Cola of the soda, and like no one else comes close. Like Coca-Cola spends more in advertising than Pepsi, their number 2, makes in profits. Their closest competitor.
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, what do you find it's like as someone who works in a profession, busking, that not everybody, but there's significant swaths of people that if you told them that you were a banker or a lawyer or a doctor, they would have more respect for you, even though they don't know exactly what it is that you do. You could be an employee at Wells Fargo that's literally stealing money from its customers, but if you say I'm a banker, the response is, "Oh, wow, that's impressive." But when you say you're a busker, like, what's that? I'm a street performer. Are you one of those guys on Hollywood Boulevard that dresses up?
Yeah.
Have you run across that ever?
Probably. I mean, I don't usually get, like I said, I don't get negative feedback. So when I tell people, usually they say,
you're an impressive lookalike.
So because of that, it's a little different than,
less of that,
than other people, for example. But I'm sure, there are people that look down on it in a way, not understanding truly what it is.
Well, our local city councilman, who I like to refer to as Mitch, where are you? He tried to essentially criminalize what we do a year ago. They had a resolution in front of the city council where we would have to get licenses every day and hope that you get one of the 8. You'd have to go all the way down to City Hall for the day to have a license to basically engage in what we all thought was our First Amendment right to, in public, perform our art.
Well, that's what the government tries to do, isn't it? Overreach as much as they can. And if you let it happen, they'll take it. So luckily...
and yet there's things that need to be done, like, I don't know, the crosswalk from Hard Rock Cafe to Jimmy Kimmel Live across Hollywood Boulevard. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Logan? Because
it's a bit of a death trap. It's not really...
You can't even see it. It's so worn down.
Yeah, it's so
We're talking about like the white
pathetic
stripes that show that it's a crosswalk.
Yeah, it's not very
and you've reached out to Mitchell, where are you? Our councilman.
I even sent him some pictures of different crosswalks I found from around the world that were quite unique and different, that I thought would be a good idea for us to implement something there.
And what response did you get?
He said good idea, but that was months ago. So nothing's happened.
Do you feel like if you had a different political position in society, like, I don't know, if you're like a studio head or if you were someone who worked at CAA, do you think you might have gotten a different response from him? Or if you worked at Disney, do you think you would have gotten a different response from Mitchell, where are you?
Most likely, yeah. Considering he just bulks us all in the same group as not likable because of the shady characters that do rip people off. So because of them, they've tarnished the name
Or the CD guys who aren't even buskers.
Or they've tarnished the name of the good characters.
So we get conflated in all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's not maintained very well, the Hollywood Entertainment District, as far as maintenance and cleanliness compared to what it could be.
I heard a story. Tell me if this is true, but someone told me that on, I don't know if it was a Saturday or Sunday morning, that early in the morning, they saw Wolverine picking up garbage on Hollywood Boulevard. Is that true or not?
Yeah, I actually went out there twice. It was a Friday and a Sunday. It was a holiday weekend. And I knew I was going to be working out there early. So I woke up like 6 a.m., got out there about 6:20. And I took my dustpan and brush because I'm only a 3 or 4 minute walk from the boulevard. So I went down there the first time in jeans and a hoodie and dustpan and brush, and I swept the sidewalks first from Orange to Highland, both sides, tons of cigarette butts and trash all over the place. So I swept it all into the street, and then I went along the gutters and swept the streets until those were clean from Hollywood and Orange to Hollywood and Highland. It took about almost 2 hours to do that. And they do have people to do this, but they don't come out till about 11 p.m. And they don't do that great of a job. Some of them don't speak English, and you tell them there's some trash over there needs picking up, and they don't know what you're talking about.
This is the Hollywood Chamber, so they don't have enough staff?
I don't know if it's the chamber, but they're hired by
the Hollywood Entertainment District?
Yeah, something like that. They wear these blue shirts, and they have these
like a couple different
carts and they're not steam cleaning or power washing the sidewalks like they used to as often.
Yeah, they did used to do that, didn't they?
A lot more often. Yeah. So they're not as clean, and people are laying down on these stars. They come to Hollywood to see these stars. They should be maintained a lot better. They should be a lot cleaner for people. You don't want to picture Steven Spielberg's star with soda and gunk all over it.
Right.
It's embarrassing.
Oh, we've seen that.
And what made me want to go out there and clean these streets like that is because
it's your neighborhood.
Yeah, and to have self-pride.
You work there.
I've heard people complain to me many times, oh, it's so dirty here. It's filthy. Look at all this and all of that. And that's embarrassing, So like I said, I knew the holiday weekend was coming up, so I just went out there myself and did that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if someone with Los Angeles City Hall or someone in the Hollywood community or someone with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce or someone with the Property Owners Association along Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset, if any of those folks were curious about what's going on in real time, in reality, out there on Hollywood Boulevard, and what kind of feedback the tourists are offering about that boulevard, you're someone that would have that kind of information. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, a lot of us buskers, we spend some time out there, and we have pride in what we do and where we're standing, and we don't want to be standing in trash.
Sure.
So we do try to maintain and keep some respect out there,
I think I'm going to need to have you back because we could talk all day about busking. But I want to get to the fact that you're also an entrepreneur and an inventor. What's the deal with this whole shoe bag thing?
Yeah,
it sounds really cool.
It's a family invention.
We've started with your mom, right?
Yeah, she travels often and had issues shoving her shoes in the side of her bag, and she wanted to find some type of bag that was customized for shoes and couldn't really find a good travel bag. So out of necessity, they say the mother of invention is necessity.
Right.
She ended up drawing up a blueprint for a shoe bag that held up to 8 pairs of shoes. And she asked me what I thought about it, and I had some input, and we changed it around a little bit and added some things. And we came up with this great idea of this bag called the Ultimate Shoe Bag. We've come up with that name, and it's online.
And it's trademarked too, right?
Yeah, we've got it trademarked, and it's LLC. We're going to have a few booths up at the farmers market soon, so you can come out and check us out there.
Oh, in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's a huge one too.
Well, not just there. There's 6 farmers markets. We're going to get a booth in all of them. And then we hope to have a booth down in the Orange.
I'm thinking the one on Ivar.
Yeah, there's one in La Brea. There's a few of them, all spread out throughout
Right.
Los Angeles. Anyway, so we're going to work those and then end up getting a kiosk over at the Orange. The Grove. Yeah, the Grove. End up...
The original farmer's market.
Yeah,
it's not really a farmer's market the way people think of farmer's market. It's
yeah, I don't want to have a booth in that. It's
kind of become a Disneyland of farmer's market in a way.
It's a great spot. Great for
really
food
cool. I love the place. Yeah, but
great for food and day drinking. Good spot.
Right.
But I want to have a kiosk closer to where like the movie theater is, for example.
Okay.
Have like a proper little kiosk out there. And yeah, it's designed for men and women. We have about 8 designs right now.
Yeah, because guys have to wear shoes too. I noticed that you sported what my Lieutenant Frank would refer to as shower slippers while a grown-ass man.
Yeah, keep it California casual. Only wear shoes when I need to.
All right. Plus, you got this shirt on, which I love. That's like your go-to party shirt. It's like maybe I was in Miami Vice, but it was the darker episode. For those of you listening and can't see through a podcast, it's a black shirt with a bunch of flamingos on it. Of course, they're pink.
Of course.
That's hilarious. I love it. But these shoe bags sound really cool. I'll have to,
you can
look at
find them
one.
online at www.eladondesigns.com. We have commercial and, like you mentioned before, commercial and...
Yeah, thanks for you guys for sponsoring the podcast
video.
here. I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you guys worked out a special deal, too, for the podcast listeners, right? So how does that work?
Yeah.
Because these are like $150 value, aren't they?
They are. We will offer you 10% discount if you use
Now, is that 10%
code.
off the $150?
Um,
Because I noticed on the website today they're going for $98.
yeah, we're doing a promo right now.
Oh,
For a
cool.
little while longer. And you can get 10% off that if you put...
Off the 98.
Off the 98.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah, they're great quality bags. They fold up for easy storage. Also, if you're going somewhere to buy shoes specifically, you could have it folded up in your carry-on. Then when you get there, you can unfold it and put the shoes in it. You could also use this bag as a carry-on bag. It has a zipper for
So you can carry
or
other
whatever.
stuff that aren't necessarily
Yeah,
shoes.
maybe you don't need 8 pairs of shoes. Maybe you only have 3 or 4 that you're traveling with. Those will easily fit. And then you could also fit a pair of a change of clothing and your toiletries in the bag as well. So it could be all in one carry-on bag.
You guys really have created a new paradigm. It's as if the hanging clothes bag didn't exist and you guys created that, or
I recently went to a wedding in Hawaii and I got to use the bag for the first time.
Right.
And I took my flip-flops, my tennis shoes, my golf shoes, my hiking boots.
And you're a dude.
And I was going for a wedding.
But this is a typical dude.
And
There's different shoes you got to wear. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had 5 or 6 pairs of shoes with me, plus change of clothes in the carry-on, and worked out great. I'm very happy with the product.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of excited that it's not just a cool product, but it's
we're a new company.
It's a new concept.
Yeah, we're getting it out there, and we're excited to see what the future brings.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think we rounded all the bases. What do you think, Logan? Do we we do it?
Covered some good stuff. Yeah.
We're definitely gonna have to have you back because you did say that you would only do this if I did a shot of whiskey with you, and
on air, yeah, and
on air, yeah.
Didn't get the whiskey quick enough.
So I guess we got to bring it back.
We'll
Got to do the whiskey shot. But I hear there's this friendly neighborhood strip club next door. I don't know. All right, well, it's great to have you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Another one in the can. It was cool to interview my buddy Logan. I mean Ross. Hey, his friends call him Logan, okay? But he is Ross Michael Johnson on the IMDb. So if you want to book him for some good SAG-AFTRA work, look him up there. Per usual, we'll have show notes up at markromanempire.com so you can easily reference, and there is a lot of links and other groovy stuff on this show. But any stuff mentioned, find it there. Podcast keeps growing. If you like it, tell someone about it. Hey, we're on the Stitcher now. Follow, like, share on the Stitcher, YouTube, and SoundCloud, and whatever other platforms we manage to get. Hey guys, making this free to you podcast, it's still costing me money, kids. So if you like it and you want more, support our sponsors. ElladonDesigns.com, Vegas90210.com, and the merch at MarkRomanEmpire.com. We got the Lieutenant Frank headshots and citations. My poem, it's what we got now. It's enough. I'm still on the Twitter, where I'm the Mark Roman. Hollywood Cap and Lieutenant Frank Grooviness, mostly on my Instagram at Vegas90210. Where to listen to the podcast and my merch, links to all of that you'll find at MarkRomanEmpire.com. Hey, remember to generously tip your busker, whether they be from Australia, Canada, or Britain. Until next week, kids, I remain Mark Roman.